Dear Scare Mail, if scary stories is what you want, then I have the perfect one for you. However, what could be mild entertainment for you was sadly a complete nightmare for me. I say nightmare because what happened to me was almost dreamlike, yet it was very, very real. For this, I am certain. Keep in mind that I am writing to you with the hopes to remain anonymous, for my life will be in great danger if anyone were to find out who I am. You'll understand why later. It was an early September weekend in 2013. Me and my buddy, let's just call him Mickey, decided to get away for the weekend and have ourselves a fishing trip at my cabin in Kentucky near the Gorge. We had a pretty stressful week at work and felt some time away was something we both desperately needed. We got there late Friday night and had a relaxing evening. Nothing out of the ordinary, nothing strange. Just hung out and took it easy, really. We woke up early the next morning at around 5 a.m. and got our fishing stuff together. We headed out to the lake, about 100 yards from my cabin. We had a damn good time out there, killing a case of bush and shooting the shit about work while we caught a fish from time to time. We were hoping to catch more, but we felt we had enough to eat that night. And besides, we were just happy to be back out there. We made our way back to the cabin at around 5 o'clock and started to prep the fish for the grill. That took about only 20 minutes, and after that we went and cleaned ourselves up for dinner and got to grilling. We put on one of the football games on the TV and got out one of my favorite bottles of bourbon and popped it. After dinner, we went back inside and put on the Michigan-Notre Dame game to finish watching it. The game was close, so we were pretty into it, but that's when things started to get really strange, and our night turned from a great one to one of the most frightening I've ever been through. The fourth quarter had just started when the signal started cutting in and out. After a few minutes, we lost the signal completely. I figured it was probably an issue with my dish on the top of the cabin, so I went ahead and grabbed a flashlight, stepped outside, and climbed up onto the roof, with Mickey securing the ladder as I worked my way up there. I started messing with the dish while Mickey stayed at the bottom to see if we'd get the signal back. Then it got even weirder. Mickey yells up to me that the power must have went out, since everything went dark inside the house. I was still on the roof, so I yelled to him to go check the breaker on the back side of the cabin. In my annoyance, I hadn't taken a second to look around and realize just how different it felt outside. It's hard to explain. It's always quiet out in the woods, but there was something still and thick about the air. Not one sound could be heard, like the surrounding area had frozen in time. I gazed out into the tree line, and I'll never forget what I saw, forever. It looked like a massive disc filled with colorful bright lights, shimmering in the night. I knew immediately it wasn't a plane, for it just kind of glided silently along the tree line. Not only that, but it was massive and long, like a building but on its side. It came close to where it was almost right on top of the cabin before it stopped effortlessly in place. I went from curiosity to straight panic. I yelled to Mickey to come see, but I heard nothing. I called out to Mickey again, desperately hoping that he just didn't hear me the first time. But again, I got no response. I climbed down the ladder in a hurry, sprinted down the stairs and turned the corner, shining my flashlight in the direction of the circuit breaker, hoping Mickey would still be there. It was dark. Only my flashlight and the bright lights in the sky were all you could see. I called out to Mickey again until my flashlight came across him, just standing there. I took a deep sigh of relief until I realized he wasn't moving. I shined my light in his eyes, and a chill went down my spine. His eyes looked like they were made of glass, as if he had been frozen or something. "Mickey?" I called out again, but he just stood there. Before I could move closer, I shined my light a little lower, and then I saw them. 6 small creatures were standing around him. 2 were standing at his sides, examining his hands, while the others lingered a little further behind, kinda just looking around the area. They had big, black eyes, long fingers, and were surprisingly short. They all looked in my direction. I freeze in fear, completely petrified, even too scared to scream. I turned and ran for my life, but as soon as I turned around, I ran into something. In my horror, I realized I had just run over another one of the creatures. I stumbled right over him, accidentally touching his skin. If I had to describe it, it was like touching the skin of a frog, if you've ever felt it. Suddenly, my skin started to burn, like a chemical burn. I screamed in pain, but my body was full of adrenaline, so I sprinted back up the stairs until another gray creature was standing at my front door, waiting for me. And then I blacked out. The only thing I remember is being in a dreamlike state, frozen stiff while laying down, as if I was in some sort of night terror. I could feel them all around me, touching my eyeballs, plucking the skin on my face. Looking back on it, I felt like a fly struck with spider venom, while the spiders gnawed away at me. There was absolutely nothing I could do. I was helpless. I just wanted it to be over. I came to sitting at the bottom of the stairs next to Mickey, who was just shivering in fear. We tried to talk about what had happened, but couldn't keep our composure. We were both a wreck. We went inside and packed up all of our stuff and got the hell out of there. I realized it was 3 a.m. now. How could we have lost all this time? We had so many questions with no answers, but didn't care. We left without even cleaning up the place. I refuse to go back till this day. We reported the incident to the police, of course, who seemed to care at first. They opened an investigation into the incident, but we never heard back from them. Mickey and I took off work for a couple weeks to wrap our heads around what had happened, but it did little to give us any peace of mind. If anything, work probably would have kept us occupied, but what do I know? Before I was slated to return to work, I got a knock on my door. I assumed it would be the authorities to fill me in on the investigation and what they had learned, but boy, was I dead wrong. At the door were 2 men in black suits. They wore sunglasses, yet I could see their eyes, and something was definitely off about them. Their eyes were unusually bulgy, like if you saw these people on the street, they'd make you look twice. Something was just off about them. They smelled pretty bad too. I can't put my finger on what they smelled like. Just off-putting, I guess. One was considerably taller than the other. After I opened my door, the shorter one just kind of scanned the house behind me. My wife was at home with me, so she was there too. They looked at her, and then they finally looked at me. I was a little worried, but I finally asked how I could help them. I felt really uneasy, because there was just something really off about them. Like the way they looked into my house was almost robotic. The shorter one finally spoke. He said, "I will say this only once. The incident at your cabin never occurred. Forget it ever happened and you can live your life peacefully. If you make this public, it will make life very, very difficult for you. Do you understand?" I looked back at my wife, then back at them, and I nodded. They turned and left, driving away in their car. I thought they might have been the CIA, so I did as they said. But now I'm starting to think they weren't the CIA, that they were somebody else, or something else. Now that I'm thinking about it, I have a feeling they would have killed me on the spot if my wife weren't there. Now you know why I wanted to remain anonymous, but I can't help myself. I've been dying to talk about this story, to tell anyone that was willing to listen. Remaining silent has eaten away at me. It ate away at Mickey too, who ended up moving away several years ago. I had never spoken to him again. The last I heard of him, he had committed suicide. So, you know how serious this is now. And maybe if you end up telling this story, others will come forward with similar experiences. But let me make one thing clear before I let you go. You will never catch me in a cabin in Kentucky ever again.